everyone. Thanks for joining me here at Ask a Black Girl, the podcast. Rana, why do you have a podcast, you ask? Actually, you didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you anyway. For many years, I've wanted to have a space where people can come together, talk, laugh, learn, be curious, all judgment-free. A lot of things, but I don't know everything. Don't tell my husband I said that. This podcast, I like to ask experts, meaning people who have knowledge on topics and subjects that I don't really have, and I love learning from them. It's about being curious. Today's conversation is a fun one because it's with a dear friend of mine by the name of Amy Chozick. Now, Amy is an accomplished journalist, author, and television writer, and she's known for her kind of relatable, funny, and sharp cultural commentary. She worked for the New York Times for many years before leaving, and then had a New York Times best-selling book called Chasing Hillary. Over the past few years, she has evolved. Amy was the creator, producer, and showrunner for that book. It was a major project, and she's got more amazing projects coming down the pike, including her first novel that will be released sometime in 2026. My famous executive functioning or lack thereof was at play here. Amy and I actually had this conversation 14 months ago. However, the things we discussed are probably even more relevant right now than they were even back then. And we also talked about fun things such as Advanced Math 6, Blanche Devereaux, and more. I hope you really enjoy this one.
An empty house.
Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
And where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining you from Los Angeles. I'm looking out at palm trees.
Okay, stop rubbing it in. So for full disclosure, Amy, I think we owe it to our audience to talk about how we know each other.
Yes, well, we have the unique honor of being married to golfers who are good friends. Your husband, Andy's Scottish. Mine is Irish, but we met through them. And I think, we met also because we didn't necessarily fit in with the other golf wives. You and I really bonded, I think, early on.
Yeah, let's be real. We both like Kate Middleton, but we didn't think she was quite a fashion icon. I think that might have been
That's a good way of putting it.
Yes. So true story. We're getting older than I'd like to admit. We've known each other for a bit now, and we're definitely in different life stages. I think when we first met, no chillin'. We both have children. We made transitions, our careers, both logistically, city to the country. But you and Rob have made quite a transition in the past couple of years, right? Tell me a little bit about that. Why?
I feel like in some ways I ghosted my old life, I think COVID made a lot of people speed up people that were having ideas about career change or moving or whatever. I think it just sort of exacerbated all those conversations because I think you had already moved out of the city, but we were in a small apartment with a baby, both having full-time busy jobs, during peak COVID in New York. And I had already before COVID, I wrote a book, as you know, I was a journalist for 20 years at the New York Times covering politics and all kinds of things. But I wrote a book about my experience covering Hillary Clinton, and it was being adapted it was at Netflix. It was being adapted into a Netflix series. I had a new baby, and I was bi-coastal because I was coming to LA to do the writer's room before COVID. And I just remember I was like, wait, I don't have to push a stroller through the snow? There's another way to live? What? And so I'd already sort of thought maybe we should give LA a try. And I really like this new kind of job that I was doing. So then after COVID, I think I really convinced Robert, my husband, who his company allowed him to work remotely, which I don't think they would have before COVID. And it just sort of the stars aligned to give the West Coast a try. So we moved out here almost 3 years ago. And I left my full-time job at the New York Times. I still contribute to the paper sometimes to be a full-time screenwriter.
And so tell us, for our audience members that don't know, what is the name of your book and what was it about? What was the top line?
I wrote a book called Chasing Hillary. It's about I covered both of Hillary's campaigns for president, and it's a very personal account of how covering this very complicated woman who was trying to become the first woman president took over my 20s and 30s. It's a little bit like, if you remember Julia and Julia, how she was obsessed with Julia Childs, so and so it's very personal. It's about every decision in my life was sort of dictated by, will we have a first woman president or not? And it's also got like a lot of inside details of the campaign, because I traveled around with her in both campaigns. So I had a front row seat to her, why she lost to Trump, and all of these, the dysfunction in her campaign, but also just her as a very complicated person. And so I wrote this very deeply personal memoir, and it was adapted into a completely fictional show called The Girls on the Bus, which is really about the female journalists on the campaign bus who became fast friends covering, in the show, it's a fictional Democratic primary.
Yeah, and before we get to that, I just want to jump in and both compliment you, but also say you made this look bad, right? So pre-COVID, I think I'm doing well, right? I think I had the one child and was managing to get into the same co-working space at the same time as you every once in a while. But here you were, pregnant as day is long, typing away. I felt like I didn't know my arse from my elbow. How is it that you managed to get your personal, how is it that you set a goal? I think for anyone listening, married, unmarried, just women in general in particular, how is it that you were able to get your ducks in a row to go after what it is that you wanted to be doing? I know a lot of people who are currently in jobs who would love to be doing XYZ, right? I asked, but I really direct, that sort of thing. How is it? What steps did you take to kind of make that a reality?
It's a really good question. Like it's funny because now we're like raising kids, right? And you think about all the things like, do I try to teach them Mandarin? Do I get them in the advanced math? Like all the things academically that we want to do for our kids.
Don't tell me advanced math, because I just sent a very, very pointed letter to the director of curriculum, and it's TBD. Advanced Math 6, y'all. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Ooh, it's gonna happen. They probably take after Andy and are really good at math. Not that you're not good at math, but like Cormac is really good, and I'm like, you did not get that from me. But I really just think that the best thing you can raise kids with is like scrappiness. And like I am super hard work. I am very, very hardworking and scrappy, and I feel like that counts more for even talent sometimes. Like I moved to New York with no job, no apartment. I had no connections. I'm from Texas, so I didn't go to like a fancy school and have this Harvard Yale connection. I was determined to become a journalist, and I just like did not give up. And then it's weird, but when I was on maternity leave, the baby sleeps so much, I started like writing a screenplay for fun, and I thought, this is cool. And I just told myself, in a few years, this is what I want to be doing. And I just think that I definitely work really hard. And I also think there's people who are very talented writers, but maybe don't treat it like a job. Like I very much treat it like a job. I'm like, I will sit in my butt in this chair, and from 9 to when I pick up my son at 5:30, I will be writing, and I will be working on that, or I will be taking meetings about projects. Like just because you don't have a boss like nagging you for something doesn't mean you don't treat things like a job. So I have people who are like, friends former colleagues who ask me how to get into Hollywood, and they're like, I wrote a script, and I'm like, but you need to write 5 more. You need to master your craft. Like, I know it's a pain to work on the weekends and at nights, and I know it's hard, but like, you need to write every day. I'm sorry that you wrote like one, in the past few years, you've written one screenplay, but like, it's not enough. Like, so I do think I have this,
That's
bad. I have a work ethic. I do have a work ethic that probably does, you're right, like come from my, my immigrant shtetl people who came,
And I'm gonna piss some people off.
Yeah.
As sometimes happen, and I even have a laugh and learn on this. But even though New York is a city full of New Yorkers, there are even more people, I think, like us. Okay, like our husbands that came from other places. Who have that hustle. I think it's for us. It's I'm from the Midwest / South. I think there's a Midwestern Southern work ethic that just kind of in you. right?
Yeah, and also like New York weeds you out. Like if you don't have that work ethic, like you're back home, like it's just like it's kind of like a survival of the fittest, right? Like there's so many people who come and like don't have that hustle, and it's like it's not going to work for you. Whether you're trying to be a writer or trying to be an actor or trying to be on Broadway, like whatever it is, like I just think it's like if you don't have that, then
And thank you for sharing that it's about chutzpah. It's about treating it like a job. As I'm writing right now, and I'm having to learn how to do that. I want to go back.
It's hard, especially when you have kids and you have a job. It's like it's hard. Like I'm not saying it's easy, but I think it's the only way.
A poster for someone being the star in the week could suck 4 hours of your time that you had reserved for yoga and that. But moving on, the happy ending, yes, is the show being on the air. But I want to quickly get to the time before that, right? It wasn't like a Hallmark movie. You didn't just move to LA and the show was in the air. Tell me about that time, kind of phase 2, if you will, what the joys were, what the challenges were. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, like this was people like see these things, they see the finished product and they're like, oh, she just like showed up in Hollywood and this happened. Like, no, this was 5 years of pushing can I curse?
Of course.
Of pushing a fucking boulder up a hill. And it was crazy and it was hard. Like the show was getting ready to shoot in Atlanta when it was at Netflix. And then COVID hit and they couldn't shoot anything. They much less shoot like a big campaign show with crowds and, travel. So we were on hold. Then there was a leadership change at Netflix. They didn't think our show, they were trying to appeal to international audiences and didn't think our show was as global as they wanted it to be. So it like died at Netflix. Here I had moved my family out to Los Angeles thinking I'm going to have a TV show and it died. And then it like miraculously got birthed again at another network at the CW. We rewrote the pilot for the 500th time. The CW network gets acquired, and they're like, we're not making original shows anymore. So, like, again, I think my dream is going to die. And then
what did you do during the downtime, other than rewrite things like that? What did you do professionally, and what did you do personally to keep yourself upbeat and positive?
Well, to me, I think of it a little bit like we've been married a really long time, so I wasn't even in dating app era, but I do think like when your heart gets broken, like get right back on Raya. Like the only way for me to heal a broken heart or like major anxiety about a project, like either dying or being on the bubble, as they say here, is to like pour all of my energy into another project, right? So like I immediately started writing this other pilot that ended up like we shot a big expensive pilot in LA and Tokyo. It didn't go forward, but it was an incredible experience. And like even when I even as soon as Girls on the Bus was out, I was like, what's next? I have to have multiple things. So like right now I have like 3 or 4 things and I'm waiting to hear on a couple projects, so I like dive into another. Like my brain will go crazy you can't put all of your eggs in one basket. You have to always anticipate that things will die or get killed or like go away. And so what else do you have? And it's like that's sort of what keeps me sane.
I think Blanche Devereaux probably had something in her wisdom about getting back under on a man, something to that effect.
Oh yes. Yeah, just get right back out there. And honestly, like I remember being like really, really sad about a project, and I met with the producers and we started to brainstorm new ideas, and it felt like self-care. I was like, oh yeah, like we maybe. And by the way, like when Aaron Sorkin was trying to get The West Wing on, no one would make The West Wing. They were like, politics doesn't work on TV. But he had this other script called Sports Night, and Sports Night was like sort of a hit. It was like Remember that? So it was sort of a hit. It wasn't a huge hit, but it was like enough of a hit that they looked at they took another look at West Wing and were like, okay, we'll give this show a shot. So like,
smoke as much organic substance as he did too. I heard that's his other secret.
Oh no, but that wouldn't surprise me. He also said he takes like 7 showers a day, which seemed like so male and entitled. I'm like, who can take 7? First of all, my skin would be too dry. Second of all, like, we gotta like bathe our kids and pick them up from school. Who can take 7 showers? But he has
not a tween yet. I don't know. You might get to that point where you're like me.
Oh yeah.
So okay. So back to the girls.
Yeah.
They're, as we were talking about before we hopped on here, I don't even Google myself. So I definitely don't Google my friends. There's been buzz. There's been response. There have been things said about the show. I personally have enjoyed it, right?
Thank you.
Watch it while I'm working out. I've started to feel a connection with some of the characters. What has the response been? Is it the response you were looking for? And what are the takeaways that you'd like for people to take away from the show? Like, what are the themes? What are the learnings?
Yeah, I mean, the response has been overwhelming. It's been so nice. People have been so supportive. I've honestly sort of braced for snark in whatever I do, because in journalism, you're just constantly getting attacked. And like, the love has been real for our girls. I think we have an incredible cast.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a dark time, and our show is just like light and dramedy. And I think people want to feel female friendship. They want to cry. They want to laugh. Like, it's been really nice. I think some of the journalists reviewing it were a little bit snarky, and I think partly it wasn't. Yeah, but partly it wasn't even about the show. It was just like, I think journalists want to see themselves portrayed as Woodward and Bernstein, as like very serious when we're speaking truth to power. And I would specify male journalists. I want to see.
Or did you hit a nerve? Like, I think,
Yeah,
I could see them being defensive because you hit a nerve. I'm thinking specifically about the conversation Kimberly. That's the Black character, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The conversation she had with that cameraman.
Remember that? Yes.
Which, spoke to me personally for a lot of reasons.
Oh, it's so funny when we wrote that, because one of the producers, I'm so glad that resonated with you, because Kevin Gurnett wrote that script, and he's a wonderful writer. He's Black. He worked for Chris Rock for many years. Like, he's hilarious, but he's also super dramatic. He also wrote the scene when Grace says to her daughter, "You're the last line of my obituary, like any asshole can procreate." Like, he's a very biting, brilliant writer. So he writes this episode, and every episode I kind of write through it, and then my partners write, and then it goes to the studio and producers. And so some people above us were saying, "I don't like this scene. It makes Gary sound kind of racist, and we love Gary. Like, we don't want Gary to be racist." And I was like, well, I think it's real. Like, you can love Gary and he can still seem a little bit racist when they're super under pressure and he says what he's really thinking. And I thought it was so interesting, because it was
what he was thinking as someone who, and this is what we talk about a lot with the classical Black girl thing, right?
Yeah.
Trust me, I've run into it already, and I'm going to run into it again. Sometimes we don't want to look at truth in the mirror, right? That's what that is. And so it was not only how he behaved, it was her initial reaction, like their conversation when it blew up. Yeah. But it was also the situation, which she said to him, basically, okay, we're gonna kind of put this to bed, but don't do it again, or I still know this happened. Right? Yes.
Yeah. Should we tell people what the scene is?
I was about to say. So tell people what the scene, because I don't have.
All right. So this is this episode, episode 6. It's an episode where so campaign reporters all travel on the same bus together. So they're all on the bus. They're headed to the debate, the Democratic debate. The bus breaks down. The episode is called The Debate. The bus breaks down in the middle of nowhere. They have no cell phone service. They're about to miss the debate, which is like the biggest night of their lives for career-wise. And everything, I say it's like the real world. It's like everything, that people stop being polite and start getting real, right? They're hungry. They don't have Wi-Fi. Their career, their biggest.
My son's baseball game last night. My 8-year-old's baseball game. Yes.
It's just like shit got real. Yeah. So
someone did get kicked. Yes. Go ahead.
Oh my God, it happens, man. So they all start debating. They start debating about journalism, about like, oh, what does it mean to be a woman? I mean, they get into like every kind of hot button debate. And Kimberlyn is the Black correspondent at sort of a Fox News type network. She's very ambitious and good at her job. And she had a big night planned for her this was her big night at the convention, and she's about to miss it. And her embed, which is the kind of cameraman assistant who travels with her, basically tells her that she needs to calm down, and he's already told the network to go with someone else, and she's furious with him. And he says, nobody gets to tell you anything. And she's like, what are you saying? And he's like, because you're this Black unicorn, like, we don't get to say anything to you. And she's like, you don't get to say that to me, and it's basically this very intense interaction between them. And then when they finally get off the bus and they're back at the bar, he like buys her a drink and he's like, I'm so sorry. And she's like, you can never do that again. Like, they do.
I felt this. I want you to know that as a Black woman in post George Floyd America, in the leafy Northeast, and my feeling about this as my friend, I think the folks out here have a bigger issue than folks in flyover country where I come from, if you will, because at least they're keeping it real.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's the undercurrent I feel about a lot of things. And I joke, at a baseball game last night. I've got a neurodiverse son. Some stuff popped off last night. And it was a very similar situation. A mother said something to me, and it's like, I'm not denying truth here, but it's the way you have spoken to and about me. And I guess Christian people shouldn't always be quoting Notorious B.I.G., but it was kind of like I had an exchange. It was almost like, girl, if you don't know, now you know. Okay? And I felt that that's what that shows that you're really, I think, reaching people from diverse backgrounds, because it's not just that. I have a million examples of things that have happened in my life where I've had to essentially check people at that level in that way, because on one hand, we're not supposed to scare people, especially the white people, and I say something, but it's like sometimes you just need to know, and you need to know what level is. So I love that, and I feel up there. What else?
And also, I think the other thing that's important, I think, in the show, and it's like they're forced together, so they work through it. It's like we're in this era of cancellation and just kind of like writing people off. And I think like ultimately, like if you're stuck together, you start to see each other's humanity, you start to empathize with each other, and you are able, hopefully, to work through some of that. And by the way, Gary ends the series, I'm sure, we don't address it, but I'm sure he ends the series a little less racist, right? Hopefully. Here's hoping. Well,
I love that thread with what we're here to talk to. Do not think, and I don't know if it's intentional or unintentional, but do you think that we all need to get back on the bus together? Do you think that's part of what the challenge is with the world and America in general? Do we maybe all need to get back on the bus together?
I mean, completely, but I don't know if that bus has passed. I think COVID made everybody just live more of their lives online, and I worry we're all sort of in our bunkers or in our coastal bubbles. And yeah, I mean, it would be nice. I just think it's a little Pollyanna to think that we can do that at this point. It feels pretty divided.
I don't know. We'll see. I have positive feelings about this bus thing, Amy. So I think we're solving the problems of the world.
I hope so.
Anything else to share with our audience? Because Amy, your work is great, but you're also personal inspiration for folks, people out there that are listening, that are really impressed by you and what you've been able to do. What are the last few words of advice you have for them if they're looking to pursue their dream?
I think that you would regret the things you haven't done more than you regret the things you've done. Sometimes there's a big news night and I miss journalism, or I wish I had, I wish I was with my friends in the newsroom. But ultimately, I think I would have had many more regrets if I hadn't tried this and taken this plunge. So, obviously, when you have a family and financial responsibility, you have to be careful. I didn't leave my job until I had several other things. I had sold 2 TV shows and a script. So I would say, make sure you're set, but also just do what you want to do, because life's short, and you're gonna, if you it'd be better to regret what you didn't do, what you did, than what you didn't do.
Amy, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. I know it was quick today. We're going to you back to discuss something else in the future.
Yeah. Great talking to you.
Thank you so much. Great talking to you.
Get on board. There's a train coming somewhere down the track.
This year, Caroline Vilga, a German, set out to go backpacking in Western Australia and was missing for 12 days. It turns out her van became bogged. What does bogged mean? Long story short, her van got stuck, kind of like quicksand style, like in that movie, The Princess Bride. Anyway, she went missing. She hit her head. So she did kind of what you're not supposed to do, and she was kind of lost and kind of was walking around in the wilderness on her own for a good 12 days. Tanya Henley, a local farmer, discovered her wandering along the path. She was dehydrated, suffering from exhaustion. And a local expert said that actually she probably should have stayed in her van in order to be safe sooner. She could have implemented something called STOP, which stands for Stop, Think, Organize, and Plan. So aren't we lucky that Tanya, the farmer, was looking out for her fellow man or woman in this point? Maybe that's a good lesson for all of us, that we're all on this bus together, like it or not. We should look out for are brethren when they wander, but if we stay on the bus, we will all be protected and get through whatever challenges we have in our world together. Thank you so much for joining me today. Feel free to contact me via Instagram or email me at rana@askablackgirlthepodcast.com. Have a great day.